everyone, welcome to Sisters Like Angel
And
and
Ally.
Ally, where we're checking in on things that matter. So, let's introduce our guest for this evening. She's no other than Miss Nicky Endres, and per her IMDb, um, Nicky Endres has long defied convention, a non-binary, transfeminine, genderqueer, and gender fluid martial artist and an adopted child. She has always challenged cultural categories to forge her own way. Oh my gosh!
Wow. So many identifications. Do you wanna take that one by one, and how important is it to identify as those things for you?
Well, personally, it's like just trans, just queer is fine. But as like an advocate, I feel it's important to use as many kind of gender expansive words as possible because like I grew up in a cornfield in Wisconsin. I didn't even know that I was trans until I was grown because like the concept of transgender only existed within like a very narrow pathological like problematic definition. And like a lot of like I in my stand-up set I have a whole thing about like the meanings of words, and words are symbols for ideas. And when you don't have language surrounding complex and beautiful ideas, it's hard to even know that those things exist, right? So I make sure to use trans feminine, gender queer, gender fluid when self-identifying publicly, just to sort of let people know that those things exist and that this is just one version of what those things can look like and sound like and feel like.
So it sounds like, in effect, it's actually shortening the idea. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds very long because it's a lot of identification, but it actually makes sense that because the ideas you're talking about is more complex and you can go on and talking about it. So being able to identify it and specifically say genderqueer or transfeminine, it actually
making it
shortens
Googleable.
it. I know. That's interesting for me too.
I just have a question about that. So, since we're talking about like, it says they're trans feminine, genderqueer, and gender fluid. Just for everyone's sake, are there times that you feel that you're more trans feminine, and then there are times that you feel that you're genderqueer or gender fluid? So when is exactly, like, how does that work? Even if I know that it kind of like works hand in hand anyway.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I like to use those gender expansive terms because I'm non-binary trans. I'm not medically transitioning, and I never really felt like I wasn't at home in my body. What I did feel is that my society told me I had to be a certain way because of my body. And but without kind of more expansive ideas and terminology, like there was no way for me to even kind of live that because I didn't know how to have an internal discussion about that with myself. Can you repeat your question? I got sidetracked.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, so are there times where you feel that you're more trans feminine, and then are there times that you feel like you're more genderqueer, and there are times that you're just gender fluid?
Yes. At home and in my personal life, like with my friends, I'm much more kind of like all genders and genderless at the same time. And my expression tends to be practical. So it depends on like whatever we're doing, like my hair, my face, my clothes, like whatever gender expression there is, it's kind of just, it's practical. Like if we're going for a hike, I'm just gonna wear shorts and a tank top and I don't wanna wear a bra. So that's what's happening, right? But I still might like do my hair in a cute bun because like that's what I'm feeling. So for me, there's like kind of like no rules. It comes inspired from inside. However, as an actor in Hollywood's still kind of just now catching up to androgyny and non-binary identities.
Right.
And so for like marketing purposes, I kind of need to like educate along the way. And a lot of my marketing materials are still very like binary and like cis passing. just so that, you know, my reps have like the trans woman like things to be able, like materials to pitch me and sort of provide for people. So it's always a balancing act, I think. And y'all know, being in entertainment and style and makeup and everything, it's like, you know, we have to navigate those, you know, educating the people who actually want to work with us and make more room for us. And then also kind of weigh that against how much is too much for the general public to take in at once.
Yeah.
So it's an ever evolving thing, you know?
And I think that's beautiful that you're basically almost like trailblazing the Hollywood world, you know, in terms of you get to educate them, and at the same time you're doing it like step by steps, just so it's not like a sudden like change for them as well. So wow, that's awesome. And you're using your platform as an actress and as a comedian to educate the industry. And I think that's very beautiful.
So, particularly for you, is it safe to say, because it also says transfeminine and gender fluid, that if, let's say, there's a spectrum of like, let's say, masculine and feminine, you're kind of very in the middle, but leaning a little bit more towards the feminine? Is that kind of a safer way to say that? And I think your pronouns also mentioned on your website, like she, her, and they, them. So you are okay with both pronouns.
Yeah, it's like I say, you know, like my favorite colors are always those ones that were like not clearly one of, like my background color, right? It's like
yes,
the blue. Is it purple? It's
blue.
Right? Like some people see blue, some people see purple, some people see gray. It's like whatever. It's like I love that kind of amorphous ambiguity and kind of just inclusive, because it makes you think. It makes you at least for me, it kind of confronts me with, you know what, I can accept this. I can fight it. It can frame it in whatever way I need. So for me, trans femininity, and why that feels like a home for me personally, even though like I'm also cool with just trans women's fine, because I live my life in a way that a lot of people treat me like a cis woman, and like I'm fine with that. That feels way more at home than a cis man. But like within queer spaces and with other queer people, like I'll break it down to like very specific things, or in like educational settings. But yeah, I'm like, I usually use they, them for myself, but I feel great when people use she, her for me, as well as they, them.
Did you have to?
It's like, I love makeup, I love hair, I love all these things that our society says are feminine. And so like, whatever.
Did you have to transition into that, like being so powerful about it now, like basically admitting it to yourself and to everybody that, you know, that you're not a binary transgender female, you know, is that something that you also had to process yourself before kind of identifying and deciding that? Because I know before passing is so important and everybody doesn't want to be clocked or doesn't want to be known, you know? So do you have that phase of kind of being there first before getting to where you are now, of being super comfortable with yourself?
Yeah, it's when we in our community talk about passing, it's so much more complicated than I think people outside of our community understand, you know, because it's not just about just feeling at home with your own self existing in the universe, but like, how safe are you? How do other people see you? Like, you know, is being clocked an anxiety kind of dysphoric thing, or is it literally like, okay, now you're gonna get hate crimes? You know, I mean, it's like it's unfair how wildly dangerous it can be for us. For me, passing was never like a thing that I felt I needed personally. It was more a means to an end to communicate where I wanted to be to other people. So just kind of giving in and being like, you know what, I don't want to medically transition, but I love hair and makeup. There's no harm in like accentuating what society says is feminine, because I don't feel it's betraying. And so long, like I approach my hair and makeup and my gender expression from an internal place. Like, does this make me feel powerful? Does this make me feel at home? Then yes. If it happens to coincide with a look Cindy Crawford's famous for, fine. If it happens to coincide with, you know, something else, like that's okay too, but like it's my choice. Like, so long as I feel like I have the agency in the matter, then then like I'm cool with it. So again, I think maybe just because I'm, you know, choosing to be an entertainer and an actor was a, you know, a privilege of mine to be able to choose. Part of that deal for me is also what I put out there publicly has to go through this filter of digestibility and communication. That yes, I can just be myself, but also if I want people to hear me, I need to meet them halfway. And
Yeah.
so for me, kind of the cis-pathing sort of things is my attempt to meet cis-het normative culture halfway.
And speaking of entertainment, you are so funny. Like
Yes, you are
like
so
in
funny.
person, in person, and all of your like materials, because like, you know, I've seen you at Flappers, like on stand-up comedy, and I saw your reel like in terms of like one day at a time. Like it's just so funny. And you also spoke about like having a Crazy Woke Asians festival. How important is comedy for you in terms of yeah, like in terms of maybe relating to the public or anything like that? Like why comedy? I know you also do drama, but I like comedy is the things that I've been seeing more lately from you.
Yes, it's definitely taking that turn. I feel like acting wise, drama always gets like the serious attention, but I love that too. But comedy for me, it's like I don't know if there's a choice in it for me. I think I've always kind of felt an affinity for it, and I always feel more confident. Like when you get a script, right? Like if I get drama, sometimes I get in my head and I'm like, oh, the psychology and what's their backstory and what are they feeling in the scene, what do they want. When it's comedy, like I feel like just the art of writing a comedic scene requires so many baseline mechanical things just for it to work, to be LOL at all, that it's almost like the like so much of the character work, it's just like there for me. Like it unfolds and I see it and I'm just like, oh, I get this person. Like right away. And so sometimes I feel like, oh, is that just like me being a lazy entertainer? But then I speak to some of my friends who hate comedy, who are really like intimidated by it. And they're like, I don't know, how can I like take this seriously? And I'm just like, well, maybe we're just different, and maybe, you know, everyone has their own separate methods into getting into different kinds of art. But for me, I love comedy because it feels, it brings me, it sparks joy, I guess, is what it does. That Marie Kondo, there's a word in Japanese that's specifically describing that ching feeling, like in like that butterfly feeling in your gut, in your heart, that just feels like it sparks joy. And I would say that comedy does that for me. And then also giving kinds of the material and the content that I most want to put out in the world in terms of art, it's like edutainment. And I feel like comedy is such a great way to inset complicated and sometimes troubling topics
Yep.
into people's lives in a way that is not intimidating, that is relatable, you know, that's not necessarily highfalutin and academic, but that is something that you can feel even if you can't explain.
Yeah.
And I love that about comedy. It's like
And I think there's also like a power in terms of kind of you know, putting serious stuff in comedy and for them to be able to learn from that. Like I think we spoke about it before, like in terms of, let's say I use a lot of the voice, like going lower and higher.
yeah,
And kind of like mixing it in comedy makes people maybe understand you more, and like it shows empowerment also, I think. And I think you could reach different audiences with comedy also in terms of your advocacy, you know, especially with identity.
I so agree with what you just said, because I feel like, and I'm still new to stand up, but it's like what I'm what I'm learning and what I love is that, like, when you do stand up, you write your own material, you perform your own material. You really have to know yourself. You have to have a point of view, and I feel like to what you just said, like why it's relatable or whatever. It's like because it's honest. Like you have to be honest, or your material isn't going to work. It's not going to be funny. It's not going to be authentically you. Like I mean, it's almost like you'd have to be the best actor in the world to pretend to be somebody else who knows what they're doing with comedy. And again, I'm new, so maybe this is just, you know, a beginner's perspective. I'll watch this 10 years later and be like, oh, that's cute, Nikki, you thought you knew. But for right now, I'm totally vibing on what you just shared there, and I agree.
I so agree with you when it comes to like you just have to be yourself. Because I just started my YouTube channel, and first I was doing just like my makeup tutorial, and then suddenly I was like, you know what, this is too serious. So I came out of my shell. I was like, you know what, I don't care anymore. What in the world is gonna be it? But I just really need to be myself. So being an immigrant here to the US and Filipino or Tagalog as my first language, I incorporate that. Because for me, it's easier for me to do comedy when I talk sometimes in my native language. And then I just translate it to English. And so they would realize what, or at least understand what I'm saying. So I totally can agree with you that it needs to be, it's just like what you see is what you get. It's like people can tell when you're hiding something or when you're faking something, but people can also tell, and you even get the respect when they know that you're being real.
Yeah, because it takes so much guts, right, to be vulnerable in that way. To like,
Yes.
not only it's hard enough to just let yourself be who you are on your own. You know, I mean, especially for trans people, we have like a whole range of, you know, getting to know ourselves in you know,
a lot of
multiple dimensions.
experiences.
But do you
I
think
feel-
it's... Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, go on.
But do you think the reason why a lot of people now relate to just like blunt comedy of just being yourself is because society now really are into like reality TV shows? So now it's like the more like vocal you are about just really what you want to say or what you really want to express, then the more most likely you'll be viewed by your audience.
I would say it's less reality shows as much as the YouTube generation. I feel like because reality shows actually are like, I think the magic of reality show comes in, first of all, the casting, to make sure that you get a bunch of volatile personalities and throw them together to like blow up, and then editing,
Right.
so that you can like craft a story out of 100 hours of like crap, like, and suddenly you have, you know, 6 hours of like things that you can sort of craft a narrative out of. Like, I think that's brilliant, but it's fake. It's not real at all. It's super artificial, but like so is everything in entertainment. But like that's what art is, I think, and I think that's what makes it cool. But to your point, what I love about stand up, and especially live stand up, when you're like in the room with people, it's like they're like, you have, I mean, yes, it's like the setup and punchlines require misdirection, but getting up there as yourself, or as, you know, a character that you've invented for yourself, like it needs to feel honest. And I think that with the YouTube generation, there's this, because I've tried to do some like open mics and like stand-up shows like during quarantine, like in Zoom, and it's this new weird medium we're kind of all figuring out. But so far, I think it's the most like YouTube, and that you don't get the immediate feedback due to technical lag, and also, you know, the video jumping around when people laugh, and so the people have to like silently laugh. That it's much more like YouTube. Like, you just have to go on faith that your timing and your material is like gonna work, and just hope that people are laughing, and you, because you might not know. And with YouTube especially, I think not just high definition cameras and like us, you know, naturally reading human faces as social creatures, but even like the scandals and everything, right? People feel really cheated if they invest their time into a channel or a personality that is then revealed to have been, you know, hypocritical or artificial in some kind of way, whether that's been like sponsorship or giveaway or whatever. It's like people, the whole reason they want to feel like the personality on the internet is their friend. They want to feel like there's a connection there, like there's a trust, like there's a kinship, I think. And so I even though the internet's kind of like the wild west of, you know, the cesspool of humanity, it's also, I think it also challenges us to be as honest as possible, just because it's like by default, like it's so easy to lie. And I think people have a keener radar for that kind of stuff than.
So the alarm went off a little bit a while ago. So I wanted to like catch on our last topic before like we get cut off. So your profile also mentions about polyamorous and sex positive. What does that mean?
Yes, what does that mean?
In shorter viewers.
Yeah, I know. Like
conversations.
In the short version, sex positivity is an attitude that sex and sexuality is natural and should be free of shame and judgment. And it's for me, it's not just like a cognitive kind of thing. It's like a philosophy. It's a way of life. So yeah, we just don't slut shame or body shame. Like there's kind of room for care.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely consent. I would say maybe the cornerstone of sex positivity is consent. And there's obviously problems with that all over the world. And I think that, we all need to be talking about that and teaching each other and encouraging each other. I mean, like one of the things, my friends in the community talk about is even just like hugs in our culture. Some people don't like hugs. And yet, have you ever felt that pressure to like have to feel like you have to receive a hug or give a hug? And then if we can even just practice, like
I think being Asian kind of like the distances like before. Now I like hugging, but before it used to be more like I yeah.
Well, it depends on the situation sometimes, right? Like, have you ever been in those awkward situations where like there's like people that you know and then people that you don't know or you're meeting for the first time and like you really want to hug the people that you miss and that you know, and then the new people and you're like, I don't know you. I don't want you touching my blouse. Like I don't want to be bumping titties with you. Like I don't know you. Like,
and how about being polyamorous? How is that for you?
Polyamory is, I guess, what we would refer to as a relationship style. Although for some people, it's also an identity. It is it means many, many loves versus as opposed to, not necessarily as compared to monogamy, which is like just the one partner. So like myths about poly is that like we're all, wanton sluts who can't stop ourselves, or that we're all hedonists, or that there are no rules. It's really not really any of those things. I guess the most simple version is just that whether or not you're in a monogamous relationship, as it happens to be, the polyamorous kind of heart and mindset is that that's not only what it is, what it has to be. That's not only what it has to be. You know what? Forgive me. I haven't put this into my set yet, so I don't have a quick, snappy comedy version for you.
It's okay.
I obviously need to add that to my list of things to write. But yeah, basically it is a healthy, consensual relationship style that just includes the possibility of more than one partner at the same time.
So right now, do you have more than one partner?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. See, you're so loved. Yes.
Hello. I will say though, as just, it's like there's any work in a relationship, be it a friendship, a work relationship, a romantic relationship. If when you're poly, it's like that's exponentially more work. Like because it's not just work per partner and per person, but like within the network. Not every poly situation is going to be different depending on the people involved. So there's no script. There's just a bunch of maybe philosophies or life lessons that other poly people can like, so there's lots of community and communication around it. But it's a lot of work, and it's work that I love doing. It's work that I feel called to do. But it's not for everybody, and that's totally okay. But I would also argue it's like, well, monogamy may not be for everyone, and that is also okay.
And I think part of the hard thing about that is it's not as commonly also informed in media, in movies, and whatever other things. So if anybody out there wants to know more about that, is there like a specific group that they can like join or reach out to you or whatever? Is that
Well, I would say definitely go to, I think it's a blog, but it's also a book called More Than Two. Also, one of my favorite books is called The Ethical Slut. And yeah, and I'm actually part of the leadership in the membership committee for Sex Positive Los Angeles, which is the Los Angeles chapter of Sex Positive World, which is a nonprofit organization about sex positivity and consent. And so it's all about kind of just spreading the culture of consent and advocating for sex positivity and empowering people to live healthy, consensual, happy lives.
Wow, super talented, super advocate. I learned a lot on this episode.
A bold actress with the heart. How about that?
Well, we can't do our jobs without it, can we?
So I'll move on to our last questions. The three tips that you want to give our viewers. So the first one is for beauty, like a beauty tip, a health tip, and self-care.
Self-care tip.
Beauty, health, and self-care. Beauty. Get a good night's sleep. Health. Stay hydrated. Okay, wrong finger, Nikki.
It's just a sex positive tip. So
yeah. So for beauty, get enough sleep. For health, get enough water. And for self-care, masturbate. Self-love.
There you go. Very well said from Miss Nicky Endres.
Any last plug? I want you to invite them like to join to see maybe One Day at a Time, the festival that you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh yeah, quick plug. I'm recurring on One Day at a Time. In season 3 is on Netflix. Season 4 is on Pop. The season kind of got interrupted because of coronavirus, but something amazing that came out of it was an animated episode. I think it was 2 weeks ago. It's excellent. It's great. Super just diverse and inclusive. There's a non-binary character in it. And yeah, I'm so grateful for that show as a fan, as well as, you know, somebody who gets to work on it. It's an amazing team of artists. I love them. And also me and my 2 friends, Anna Parsons and Aiden Park, got into the Crazy Woke Asians Festival, which is a comedy festival that was rescheduled due to coronavirus from May to September. And we're gonna do our show Asian Americanized.
Oh.
Ally, any last plug?
Well, I'm just
and you can
so
close
happy
it up, I guess.
you know, I mean, like, I was very excited when we finally knew and got to set up a time, you know, to have this interview with you. Because when I saw you before at the Jeffrey Tambor, right there, I just had this love and admiration of how amazing you are, not just as an actress, but more so how real you are and beautiful you are as a person inside as well. So thank you, Miss Nicky.
Oh, you are so welcome, girl. It takes one to know one.
Yeah!
I'm so just thrilled to be invited to be here with y'all. I mean, because we know each other in person. Like, I love you, and I'm so thankful that you exist in the world and that you exist in my life.
Well, I love you too, and I look up to you. I think you're super funny. I mean, I was new in comedy too, and like kind of like seeing you is like, oh my God, yes, I love that. And sitcom, that's, you know, yeah. Thank you so much for being here. And everybody, thank you for watching. Again, please tune in. It's every Sundays on YouTube. We have special guests every Sundays, and we're also doing live chat on Sundays. It's at 6 p.m. in Los Angeles time, 9 p.m. in Washington, D.C., New York City time, and in Manila, it's 9 a.m. Monday mornings. Again, I'm Angel.
And I'm AllyCat Castle.
And today we have Nicky Endres.
And today we have Miss Nicky Endres. Thank you so much. We love you so much, Nicky, and wishing you more power. And I hope we can have you again very, very soon.
I love it. Love hanging out with you.
All right. Bye.